Hello, everyone. It's a snowy day over here today. There is this storm that's going to, I think, deposit around 20 to 30 centimeters snow throughout the day, until tomorrow morning. And yeah, it's been a bare winter so far. So I'm kind of mixed. I know I have to go do snow shoveling and, shovel the snow, and like 20 centimeters is a lot. But I'm also kind of looking forward to it. It's this winter has been a little bit bare so far. I just read today it's called Fool's Spring. Anyway, let's get to the highlights today. So we'll start. The first one is from Mind for Numbers. The hard start, the hard start jump to easy technique may make more efficient use of your brain by allowing different parts of the brain to work simultaneously on different thoughts. Okay, so this was interesting. I remember advice from school, for exams that when you start working on your exam paper, uh, target the easy questions first, so that when, for example, if you get stuck on a hard problem and you can't solve it, at least you get the marks for the easy problems. And it made sense at the time, but this book has this whole different approach, and this makes sense as well. The idea over here is that start with the hard problems. Think about it. It's not that, okay, you look at a problem and see that, oh, it's hard, let me skip to easy ones. It's not that. Think about it, try to solve it if you can. But like kind of time box your efforts, maybe like 2 minutes, I guess, 2 or 5 minutes, whatever is appropriate for the problem. Time box your efforts, think about it, and now move to the easy problems. So this technique will allow your brain to solve different things at the same time. Now that you're jumping to easy problem, where you can probably solve it kind of on an autopilot mode, you're doing that, but at the same time your brain is still thinking about the hard problem that I encountered before. So yes, this definitely makes sense. You're occupying your brain with multiple different things, and when you come back to the hard problem later, you will suddenly have connections that, okay, which you never made before. So yeah, let's move on. The molecule of more. When it finds something that's potentially valuable, dopamine switches on, sending the message, wake up, pay attention, this is important. It sends this message by creating the feeling of desire and often excitement. The sensation of wanting is not a choice you make, it is a reaction to the things you encounter. Hmm. There was a discussion about, the two different dopamine circuits in the brain. One is the pleasure one, and the other one is a controlled dopamine circuit. The pleasure one, it's kind of, you see something pleasurable and it kicks in. The most common example here is using drugs and other intoxicants. And the controlled dopamine circuit, it emphasizes the need for your control. Where you kind of plan for the future, and then you are rewarded for making such plans. And when you find something that's potentially valuable, that's going to help you along your plan, for example, dopamine switches on, sending that, okay, pay attention, this is important, and then it creates the feeling of desire and often excitement. And the book goes on to show that, without this feeling, without dopamine present, we rarely, or we would never get the inclination to do something that we should be doing, for our own better futures. So I don't really remember the experiment, so I think I'll skip that. But yeah, that's the message over here. We'll move on for now. Okay, again, the molecule of more. Highly intelligent, highly successful, and highly creative people, typically highly dopaminergic people, often express a strange sentiment. They're passionate about people but have little patience for them as individuals. I found this quite funny, and funny not in the sense of disbelieving way. I do believe it. I have to say I do feel the same thing. Um, so I found it funny that way, like how well it reflected the thoughts that I see, in people, where they say one thing, that they care about people, but then when it comes to individuals, they hardly care. The behavior is completely opposite of what you would expect, and this explains it. This whole chapter, where this highlight is present, it kind of walks through a lot of different scenarios, and it kind of touches on politics a lot. differences between the dopaminergic people and people whose HNN circuits are emphasized, and how it kind of corresponds to Democrats and Republicans, left leaning versus right leaning, and how the behaviors differ. Like everybody cares about people, but in different ways. So again, this was a very interesting chapter for me. It was kind of very eye opening. Yeah, I would encourage you to read this book, especially this chapter on on this how people's behaviors differ, depending on their the strengths of the circuit, dopaminergic circuit or the HNN circuit, and that kind of tells me a lot about or explains to me a lot about what I see in the world, in behaviors of different people. We'll move on. Get it done. When setting deadlines and other targets, you have a better chance of motivating yourself to do your best if there are relatively minor consequences for failure to meet the targets. In this case, you set targets to challenge yourself and simply hope to make it. Yeah, I think this is kind of self-evident. In fact, it's kind of obvious if you think about it. If you're if the chances of failure or if the consequences of failure are huge, we usually find ourselves tied up in this analysis paralysis, and tend to procrastinate and everything. So when setting deadlines and other targets, you have a better chance at, like the highlight says, the motivation that you need. If the consequences are smaller, there is a better chance you'll motivate yourself to get to work faster. So the takeaway is that aim to find break up the task so that the consequences of failure are always smaller. Where you can quickly back up if something goes wrong, and the kind of like the smaller PR, smaller pull request thing that we talked about yesterday. That if it fails, also at least you're getting a very quick feedback, and you can correct it and move on. So the chances of fail or the consequences of failure are small. We'll move on. Molecule of Mo. It's like our favorite old haunts, restaurants, shops, even cities. Our affection for them comes from taking pleasure in the familiar ambience, the real physical nature of the place. We enjoy the familiar not for what it could become, but for what it is. It's kind of like a poetic line within a highly technical book. So it's talking about how brain processes familiar and non-familiar, and the exciting in different ways. And while I'm forgetting which chapter it appears in, but yeah, it's kind of this is reinforced in many other books as well. How brain appreciates the familiar, and kind of we end up trusting the familiar. There was this in one of the other books I read about this study as well, and like generally the effect that if you come across something enough number of times, and even if you know that that thing is not true, or that thing is not good for you, generally speaking, even if you know that, but if you just come across it enough number of times, you start trusting it. That's the trick that brain plays on you, with familiarity. That you don't have to know that it is good or it is perfect, or even it is helpful to you. You don't need to know any of it. You just need to come across it a few times, like uh, just a few times, and yeah, your brain will start trusting it more. You will start trusting it more, and that's really what we see in marketing, right? It doesn't matter that, okay, you see an ad and then you're immediately motivated to go buy that thing. It doesn't matter, and marketeers know that's not going to happen. It's really about repeated exposure, which makes you fall in trust with that particular thing. That's really what this highlight also tells us. We'll move on. Okay, $100 million offers. The Grand Slam offer only becomes valuable once the prospect perceives the increase in likelihood of achievement, perceives the decrease in time deal, and perceives the decrease in effort and sacrifice. Okay, so in this book, the author is talking about something called Grand Slam offer, which is kind of, um, you know, impossible to refuse. It's like your potential customer, the prospect should perceive the increase in likelihood of achievement. It should not appear to them that, oh, I'll buy this product, but I don't know if it will work out for me or not. It should not be that way. It should be very apparent to them that it is going to work for them, that it is going to decrease the delays and it's going to decrease their effort. Only then it's like that makes up an offer which is kind of impossible to refuse. We'll move on. Getting things done. Trying becomes striving and striving undoes itself. Social climbers strive to be aristocrats, but their efforts prove them no such thing. Aristocrats do not strive, they have already arrived. Swing is a state of arrival. Yeah, I can't recall this. It is clear what the highlight says, but I really don't recall the context, so I'm going to skip it. Measure what matters. People who plan have to have the guts, honesty, and discipline to drop projects as well as to initiate them, to shake their heads no as well as to smile yes. We must realize and act on the realization that if we try to focus on everything, we focus on nothing. It's a repeated thing, we hear all the time that focus really has to be on one specific thing. You have to get good at saying no. So I don't really think that I can add anything more than something that we all know already. So moving on. Oh, again, measure what matters. Leaders must get across the why as well as the what. The people need more than milestones for motivation. They are thirsting for meaning, to understand how their goals relate to the mission. And the process can't stop with unveiling top line OKRs at a quarterly all hands meeting. As LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner likes to say, when you're tired of saying it, people are starting to hear it. There is a lot of points packed in this highlight, I feel, and I think each of them are kind of a discussion in itself, but they're pretty straightforward. There's not much I need to really, as in you can read this to get the point. Yeah, I think let's move on. Get it done. When you find yourself facing a goal that's highly important, framing your progress based on what you haven't yet accomplished may be more motivating than thinking about what you've already done. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was right. Like I said, Readwise has these flashcard kind of functionality as well. And this has come up, I think, a few times before. So we'll move on. And that's the end of the highlights today. Once again, thank you for watching. And if you happen to be in one of these areas, stay warm. The storm areas, stay warm and stay safe. Thank you. Have a good day.